Hello and welcome to Eye on Oakland. I'm Chuck Moss, your host. We have a great show today. We have one of our favorite people and one of our recurring guests as often as I can get him on, Craig Bryson, who is the Senior Manager of Communications for the Road Commission for Oakland County. We don't call it the Oakland County Road Commission for Oakland County. And welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Chuck. Great to be here.
Glad to have you back. And we just have I've teed up this gotcha question. So you ready?
Perfect.
What's happening with Oakland County roads?
Well, they're actually in relatively good shape these days. We've been the beneficiary of the 2015 state road funding package, and with that additional funding, we've been able to resurface more than 600 miles of roads in the last 6 or 7 years since that money became available. So the roads are actually in far better shape now than they've been in quite a while. 600
miles of roads.
Absolutely, of the 2,700 we have. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many do we have?
Right.
2,700. Well, that's not bad. Is there any big news? Okay, let's get something out of the way right now. Got to do it. 696. It's not your fault.
It's not. It's not our project. We are working with MDOT, and a lot of that traffic has found its way onto our roads as a result. But it's MDOT's project, and sadly, it needs to be done. It's work that has to be done.
It does. Well, 696. I always thought of traffic as like water. And Glenn Hagee, America's Master Handyman. I forget which. Water always wins.
Absolutely does, and finds the path of least resistance.
Indeed. Have they been talking with you? This just has occurred to me out of the blue, is that the narrowing or skinnying or whatever of Woodward Avenue. I know they did that in Ferndale. Are they thinking of doing that elsewhere on Woodward, and is there any thought to where that water is going to go?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know that they've made a definitive decision yet. I believe they're still studying that question. And obviously, we're interested in the answer to that question because, yes, some of it will more than likely find its way onto the parallel or nearby north-south roads that we own, and that's
Adams Road.
Adams Road, absolutely.
Adams Road.
Yep. And that certainly affects places like Birmingham and all the communities along the Woodward corridor.
Yeah, it's funny because we're talking years and years ago now, which is the benefit of having longevity, is when I started in politics in Birmingham and neighborhoods in the early 90s, cut-through traffic was the issue. And so I guess we want to have it be that way again.
Right. I was going to say, it remains an issue and will be even more so if we force some of the traffic off some of the major routes.
I know that for me, I live at 15 Mile and Woodward basically, or 15 and Adams, and to get on the freeway, going downtown, we go down all the way to 8 Mile and over. So we're going through Ferndale now, which has skinnied Woodward Avenue down. Ferndale's a lovely community. It's best just to go there and stop and do stuff there, but getting through it, not as easy. What's the big news besides the fixing the roads, getting it the road in Oakland County? What else you got?
Well, the biggest thing for us right now is the road funding discussions going on in Lansing. I mentioned we benefited from the 2015 road funding package, but the downside of that is the new revenue we got in 2015, or starting in 2017 as a result of the 2015 package, has now pretty much been eaten up by inflation. We're now back to where we were when that package was enacted, meaning we need more money. And at the time when that package was enacted, then Governor Snyder and the legislative leaders at the time, many of the legislators at the time, agreed it was a good start and we needed more funding. It wasn't enough to do the job. So we're back to having that discussion. The good news is that both the Speaker of the House and the Governor seem to be making that a priority. They're talking about it. They haven't obviously converged on a single proposal that everybody can get behind yet, but they are talking about it. And that, to us, is huge. We are at what we consider kind of the fiscal cliff now. The end of 2025, fiscal year 2025, we will see the road system, according to all of our projections, start to decline again. It's been improving year after year after year since 2017 when that new money started to flow. And this will be the first year it starts to decline. We'll go back to where we were in 2016 and earlier years, where each year it got worse and worse and worse rather than better.
Well, I remember we're talking Geez, we're talking how long ago? We're talking 20 years ago or whatever, and about the conditions of the roads. And you correct me if I'm wrong. Is that the conditions of the roads don't from 100% and then go 90, 80, 70 like that? They go 100, 90, 80, and then boom, they fall right off.
That is absolutely right.
And you were telling us, look, we're here, and if we don't put some money into it, we're going to fall off. Well, we fell off. So, we have a governor who said we're going to fix the damn roads, and I guess some of the damn roads got fixed, but not all of them. There's a question. Is it really just a condition of money? It's like money in, condition out.
It is. It is. I mean, there are a lot of people raise the question, do we not build roads the way they do in Ohio? Do we not use different materials, different designs? And the answer is no. We use a lot of the same materials. It varies a little bit based on climate, geography, but we use the same basic materials, the same design processes. All of our engineers talk to the engineers in other states and at the federal level. But, for example, Ohio has been putting $1 billion a year more into their road system, which is approximately the same size as ours, for decades. And so you get what you pay for. And it is, unfortunately, it really is a matter of dollars.
Well, I thought Ohio, one of the reasons in Ohio the roads lasted longer because it being Ohio, I think they use human sacrifice or something.
I suspect they do.
Yeah, Ohio State University, there's no question. What about now? So I remember once again, years and years ago, they were talking about maybe different materials or using rubber in roads or doing all that. Did anything come of that?
Well, it's interesting that what goes around comes around. Back in
That's what I hear.
80s or 90s, we tried some of the recycled rubber asphalt on 14 Mile, and this was probably not a great choice of locations, right in front of Oakland Mall, at the time, one of the busiest county roads in the county. Put down rubberized asphalt, and it lasted a couple of months. It was great for a couple of months, and then the rubber started peeling out of the asphalt, and we had to rip it up and redo it. So that turned us off to that for a long time. Today, jump ahead 30 years, and there are new formulas that are using recycled tires as well and are gaining popularity. So we've been watching these for a while, and we're actually going to begin experimenting with those again this year on a much less heavily traveled road this time, and see how it goes. It's been used in several other counties now around the state, and it seems to have a lot more promise than the old version did. So, I mean, there are always new things coming along. We are always very interested in them. There is a lot of technology. One of the problems with a lot of the new stuff is it's very expensive. There are carbon fiber bridges that Lawrence Tech has been looking at. Potentially great possibility for something that doesn't rust or deteriorate the way traditional steel and concrete bridges do. But right now, the cost is prohibitive. And maybe as these things gain in popularity, the cost may come down. And we're always monitoring them and always wanting to try those types of new things where it's appropriate and where we can do it cost effectively.
Well, I know that, that obviously that didn't, using the rubber in front of Oakland Mall didn't have much of a bounce. The rubber meets, I'm sorry, it's like Tourette's. I can't stop myself. It's a terrible thing. But yeah, so obviously things keep improving and improving. That would be good. But if the initial cost is prohibitive, the initial cost is prohibitive.
And that's one of the things that we have talked about. People always say, well, why don't you build roads that last for 100 years? And the answer is we know how to do that. And MDOT has done some experiments where we build a much deeper base. We could do that, but it would be so expensive that we might do 1 mile of road that would last 50 or 100 years, but the rest of the roads would all be falling down around it. We have to spread the money out and try to do, cost effectively manage the resources that we have. So we don't build roads intentionally to last 100 years because of the cost.
Well, if you just have chariots and armies marching, you can build the Appian Way and it can last for, 2,000 years or whatever.
That's right. But few heavy freight trucks on those roads as well.
Yeah, well, and also you had the Dark Ages and, and then they built railroads on the other side. But so my question, so really, when you talk about money, what is it cost in general to fix a stretch of road, like dollars per mile? Let's, it's. I think that there's an economic theory that holds that you have to shut down Telegraph Road every 7 years or something and repave it. But if you're fixing, let's say, a Telegraph or a Woodward or whatever, even Adams, how much money does it cost to rebuild the road?
Well, and that's a great question. It's kind of a nuanced answer to that question.
Sure.
And the correct answer is you should really only need to rebuild it once every 25 to 30, 35 years. However, you have to, in order to make it last that long, you have to do a lot of routine maintenance over the years in between, and that's where sometimes people get confused. Because, for example, once we've rebuilt an Adams Road, tore it up down to the base, took the base out, put a new base, new pavement, completely reconstructed it.
Like you did in 95.
Right. So that should last for 30 years, theoretically.
Yes, for 30 years. And what year is it now? Yeah. No, really, I learned about this. We bought our house years and years ago and put a roof on it. And the guys worked on it. And finally, someone comes and said, you should probably think about replacing that roof. And I said, replace the roof. What's the matter with it? You put that roof on. You did that. And you told me that was a 20-year roof, didn't you? And he said, yeah, I did. When did we do that? I said, 1990. He said, what year is it?
Exactly.
2012. He said, there you go.
It's due, right? And in order to get that 30 years out of the road, you have to do things like put a new layer of asphalt, mill off the top layer of the asphalt, and put a new layer of asphalt on every, say, 10 years or so. You have to crack seal, you have to pothole patch, and do all these routine maintenance. So people will see us milling off the top layer of asphalt and putting on a new layer of asphalt, which is a much simpler project than a reconstruction. But from the public's point of view, it's hard to tell the difference. And they'll say, well, you just resurfaced that road 10 years ago. Well, we reconstructed it 10 years ago. Now we're resurfacing it to ensure it gets its useful life.
So for that kind of let's talk on a sliding scale. How much money are we talking about?
Right. So it's multi-millions. If you're talking about reconstructing a 5-lane road, we're talking $8 million and up a mile.
$8 million and up.
$8 million and up. If you're doing a 3-lane, it's $5 to $6 million and up. And those numbers, by the way, have gone up tremendously in recent years. We've seen high inflation, obviously, in everything.
You mean the inflation that a year ago they were saying didn't happen?
Right.
Yeah, okay, that
exactly.
inflation. That inflation that didn't happen.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Well, and the inflation for road construction elements has been even higher than the consumer inflation. So we've seen dramatic increases in our costs.
Well, now, how do you decide what roads to fix and how to prioritize it?
That's a great question, and there are a lot of factors that go into those decisions. We do something called asset management, where we look at all of our assets, the condition they're in, the condition we would like to be in, the amount of money we have to spread over the system, and then we start prioritizing. And that priority looks at, number one, safety. You might not think that's a factor in choosing road projects.
Well, why would I not think that? I would hope I would be thinking that. Yeah.
And we would hope too. But if you have two roads that are both deteriorating and both need to be resurfaced, but one of them has a history of serious injury, crashes, or even fatalities, that road is going to rise higher on our priority list. And we're going to look at it and say, we'll look at the crashes and say, is there something related to roads that we can do when we resurface that road? Can we correct a curve that's a little too sharp? Can we lower a hill that's causing sight distance issues or something like that? So that's one of a big factor is the safety. Obviously, the condition of the roads. We like to resurface roads before they get to the point where we have to reconstruct them. Again, that's a cost-effective step in the process. So before a road is completely falling apart, we'll try to mill it off and resurface it. Factors such as traffic volume are certainly a big issue. Just like everything else we do, the roads with the most traffic have to be the highest priority because they affect the most people and they're most safety-oriented because of that. Then we look at funding. Can we get federal dollars for a project? Is the local community willing to participate? And obviously, if those sources are available, that raises the project on our priority list. And then just other engineering factors. Is there a drainage issue on the road that's causing it to deteriorate prematurely that we could correct with the project? That'll elevate the project. So a lot of factors. Public input and community input. What are the local officials in the city of Birmingham? What's their priority for roads in their community that are under our jurisdiction?
Well, that's good. Well, we're going to have to take a break here, and we're going to come right back. We're talking with Craig Bryson, who is the Senior Manager of Communications in the Road Commission for Oakland County. You want to know anything about roads? Got to ask. Don't go away. We'll be right back here on Eye on Oakland. Welcome back to Eye on Oakland. I'm Chuck Moss, your host, and we have Craig Bryson, who is the Senior Manager of Communications for the Road Commission for Oakland County. And we were talking about roads, and we're talking about priorities. One thing I got a question about is Oakland is a very big county, very, very big county. How do, you've got like Addison Township, and you got Troy, yep. And you got Southfield. How do you keep roads through farmland and roads through cities? How do you work all that?
That is a constant challenge. One of the interesting aspects of that, though, is that in Michigan, townships do not have jurisdiction over roads. I know you know that, but your viewers may not.
Well, because we are in probably the largest, richest township that maybe might be a city, but it isn't. So that is it. So anyway, you were saying.
Very true. So in townships, we have jurisdiction over all the roads except for the state highways. That means all the subdivision streets, the local roads, the main roads. Whereas in cities and villages, the cities and villages have jurisdiction over the local neighborhood streets, subdivision streets, and some of the main roads. And we share some of the main roads, and it varies from community to community. So part of that gets sort of settled by us just doing more roads in the townships. We have garages that focus more on urban areas, and we have garages that are focused more on rural areas. The garages we have in Troy and Southfield, for example, don't do subdivision work because there are no subdivisions we have jurisdiction over, very few that we have jurisdiction over in their coverage areas. Our garages in Milford, Springfield Township, and Orion Township do a lot of subdivision work because they have many, many miles of subdivision roads. But it's a constant challenge balancing the urban and the rural, and the needs are very different. We've got 750 miles of gravel roads, primarily in the rural townships, that need, especially this time of year, need constant attention. And this has been a real challenge this spring when the ground thaws below the gravel roads and the snow melts and the rain falls. The water gathers on the top layer of the gravel roads and they turn to mush. And there isn't a lot we can do. We can try to grade, we can put new material down, but that's a constant challenge. But we only have so much material, so many crews, so much equipment that we can devote to that. And we can't ignore the roads that carry 30, 40, 50,000 cars a day in the more urbanized parts of the county either.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you trying to tell me that we would have a day where it would be 70 degrees and then the next day it would be like 35 degrees? You mean like today?
Exactly, and weeks of this.
Yeah, up and down. Are you trying to tell me we live like in the state of Michigan or something?
That's right, in the largest freeze-thaw band in the country, right across the Midwest here.
I certainly believe that. So now, since we're talking about weather and such stuff, I know it seems at this point that hopefully we might be seeing toward the end of that season, but snow removal. That's got to be, that strikes me as a giant like emergency. You find out, oh my God, we're going to get, a blizzard. How does that work?
Well, that's a great question. And actually, to digress for just a minute, the blizzards are kind of easy. You have all the trucks out doing all the salting and plowing as much as they can during the blizzard and then falling up after the blizzard. What is more challenging for us is what we've seen a lot this year is the light snowfalls where it's just enough to cause the roads to be slippery. And people don't really think of it as a snowfall because we didn't get any accumulating snow. But we are out on those occasions often around the clock for a day or two at a time when there's freezing rain or snow. Just trying to keep the roads from getting slippery. So it's a constant challenge. It's $12 to $15 million per year that has nothing long term to show for it. It's a lot of overtime for our drivers, and it's a much more complicated process than I think people realize. We study the weather forecast very closely. We have our own contracted weather forecasting services. We follow the radar, and making that call when to call in trucks is the critical point. If we bring in all of our trucks and drivers on overtime, say in the middle of the night, it costs us about $35,000 an hour. So if it we do that and it turns out not to snow, that's money going down the drain. So we try not to do that. On the other hand, if we miss it, if we don't call them in time and it starts snowing hard and the roads ice up and people get in crashes, that's a horrific outcome too, and we don't want that. So it's that critical point of trying to make the call at just the right time, because you also don't just make the call and we instantly have trucks on the roads. If you're doing this in the middle of the night, people have to come from their homes to the garage, get in the truck, get out on the drive from the garage to wherever their salt route or plowing route is, which can take half an hour in rural parts of the county. So we're talking potentially an hour, maybe even 2 hours from the point where we call drivers in till they're actually on their route doing the snow salting and plowing.
Now, this just occurred to me, and this is maybe only my personal weird point of view, is that Oakland County, and you go north out of Pontiac, and you're heading for Flint on, say, 75, we never think of Oakland County as having really serious hills, but that, once you get out, those hills between, say, Flint and Pontiac, those are nasty when it comes to the winter weather. You don't think anything of it when it's dry. The next thing you know, 40 minutes and you're there. But those are really treacherous. I've driven them a couple of times when I've seen semis off to the side.
Absolutely, and that is a constant challenge, not only on the main roads, on I-75 and the main mile-type roads, but we have subdivisions that have very steep hills. And we generally don't salt subdivisions, but we know where those hills are, and we try to, because there are subdivisions you can't get up the road if it's all ice. So we try to salt those as much as we can. But that, subdivisions are kind of the bane of people's existence. They know, because we have to be on the main roads, we have to be on the freeways and the main roads where there's the most traffic. Safety dictates we're there first. So the subdivisions are often the last roads we get to, the fewest amount of cars, slowest speeds. So we go in there after everything else is cleared up. But we also try to get into those hills that we know about that are particularly bad earlier than that.
Some of those hills, and I've walked them in some of those subdivisions. Now, as far as subdivision, Bloomfield Township is all subdivisions, of course, because Bloomfield Township is developed as a city, but for very, very good reasons, it's stayed technically a township. So you guys are in charge of upper, lower, Pheasant Ridge, whatever. You guys are in charge of those, right?
Yes and no. Bloomfield is a unique example. There is actually a state law that was written just for Bloomfield Township that allows Bloomfield Township to do some of the maintenance on the local roads in the township, specifically the subdivision roads. So they do the pothole patching, the plowing on the subdivision roads. They actually remain under our jurisdiction, but the township agreed years ago to set up a DPW and to tax their residents an additional millage to pay for that additional service. They were willing to do that because they wanted a higher level of service than we could provide. But that is unique in most of the state and certainly in Oakland County.
Yes, well, it's good because I think Bloomfield Township is unique, basically, which is good. Now, we're on the subject of salt. I was going to say, are the winters getting milder? Are we using less salt or not?
Well, if you'd asked me that last year, I would have said that the data seemed to suggest that. But this year, so far, and who knows what will happen for the rest of this season, but so far we've used about 65,000 tons of salt, and that's just slightly higher than our 5-year average. The last 2 years, I believe we only used 40-some thousand tons, and then 3 years ago we used 65,000 too. So I think it is fluctuating maybe more than it used to. But we get these years like this year where, again, there weren't a lot of big accumulating snows. There were a couple, but there were a lot of little snows this year, and that causes us to go out and use salt.
Now, can you stockpile? I mean, if you have to buy, let's say, 40,000 tons, let's pick a number, for this year, but you only use 20, does it keep?
Absolutely.
That's good.
We have 6 salt storage facilities. 5 of them are salt domes. One's a salt shed in the county. When they're completely full, they hold about 37,000 tons of salt, and we try to start the winter with that 37,000 tons in there. And then we're resupplied as needed on a daily, sometimes hourly basis as needed.
So do you, what's it cost, just off the hip, to buy a new snowplow? A lot.
They're well over $300,000 now, and they've gone up dramatically, partly because the price of steel has gone up. There's a lot of steel in them, but the technology has really driven up the price. There's a lot of new mandatory environmental controls on them. There's a lot of technology that helps us use them more efficiently. and they're a big investment, and we're still having trouble getting our manufacturers to deliver them. We have right now, I believe, about 12 of the big orange dump trucks on order that we've had on order for about 2 years.
Get out of here.
Yeah, waiting for them. I mean, it's still supply chain issues apparently in some areas of heavy industry.
Well, since we're talking supply chains and all that stuff, it's been 5 years since 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And the shutdown, people are finally going back to the office, or they're finally being forced, go back to the office. Are you seeing a difference in traffic volumes or things?
We are. We're certainly seeing it, especially in the middle of the week. I think there are probably still more people that work from home on maybe Monday and Friday and are in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, or some combination of those middle of the week days. And we certainly see heavier peak hour traffic during the middle of the week. Is a noticeable difference on many of our roads.
I've noticed, going downtown and like that. Yeah. So now the question is, we've been talking about road and maintenance and all that, but you guys also do traffic management. I mean, I've been to the war room. I've seen back years and years ago was a Brent Bear. He said, "Well, where do you live?" And I told him. He goes, "Here, look, I can just see right onto your street." Yep. I thought, right. So anyway, so you still do a lot of that with the cameras and all. How's that working out?
We do, and there's actually some really exciting new technology in that field. We got a federal grant that we're implementing right now. That's some really cool stuff. Traffic signal timing is critical to the way roads flows. That means the amount of green time versus the amount of red time of each traffic signal, and coordinating that time can be the difference between a smooth rush hour traffic flow and a bumper-to-bumper stop and go. So we're always trying to improve that. Many of our traffic signals are automated, where they monitor the traffic flow with traffic detectors at the intersection, and a computer automatically adjusts that timing. But some of them are still what we call fixed time, where engineers determine the best time. So we found a new way, working with U of M, with a really exciting new way. We get data off of cars. So most of the new cars collect data about where they're going and how much they're stopping and going, their speeds, et cetera. One of the automakers agreed to give us non-specific data. It doesn't refer to any driver, it doesn't tell us where they started, where they ended, but it gives us traffic, and it was actually in Birmingham, allowed us to see, and this company accounted for about 10% of the vehicles on the road. We can extrapolate from that 10% to what the large majority of drivers are doing, and can tell us where the traffic is, how fast it's going, and we can use that to instantaneously change the timing of the signals. And we did that in Birmingham and saw a dramatic improvement in traffic flow. I mean, most drivers are not going to notice that they save 20 seconds at this intersection and 20 seconds at this intersection. But you look at that in the cumulative, and it makes a huge difference in the smoothness of the traffic flow. It reduces the likelihood that somebody's going to try to run a yellow light and get in a crash. So and this could be extrapolated worldwide. And in the world of traffic engineering, that traffic signal timing is the holy grail. And in the past, we would have to send engineers out, sit by the side of the road, count cars with a paper and pen, and say,
yes.
And how many cars are going this way, how many are turning this way, how many are going this way, which is, fraught with opportunities for human error and difficulty and expensive to do.
You used to be able to go from 9 Mile Road out to Square Lake on Woodward Avenue, and you have to go between 56 and 57 miles per hour to hit every light, including 13, and including the outliers on Lincoln in Royal Oak and Oakland in Birmingham. Yes, the speed limit's 45. Therein lay the challenge.
Absolutely.
The sport, yeah.
And even if in the old way, even if the engineers were able to get that timing right, so you could do that and smoothly do that, that timing changes constantly. You have new businesses opening and closing, new developments. A signal may lose power, and when it comes back on, it's just slightly off. So the key is to retime those signals on a regular basis. But again, that's been very expensive. Road agencies have not had the funding to do that. This new technology allows us instantly to do that, or continuously to do that, to make sure we have the best time.
Well, that's good, because I can tell you right now that you can still go from 696 to up to 16 Mile and hit all the lights if you're timing it right. Well, we're going to have to leave it there. We're talking with Craig Bryson, who is the Senior Manager of Communications for the Road Commission for Oakland County. And, I'm sorry, road conditions is money. Money equals road condition, and that's the way of it. And then that's how you get your damn roads fixed. All right, thank you very much for joining us here. I'm Chuck Moss, and glad you were here for Eye on Oakland.